wow, this is fantastic. My name is Janet Dimitrieff, and I'd like to welcome you to this event tonight. And it's put on partly with Whonnock Community Association in joint with the Maple Ridge Teachers Association. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the land, unceded territory of both the Katzie and Kwantlen nations. I would like to introduce the candidates. We have Angie Rao. Daniel Heinrich. Peter Buttle. Chris Leonard. And Mr. Money becomes so. Unfortunately, I guess you could have heard that the Green candidate had problems with their paperwork and she withdrew, so there will be no representation from the Greens tonight. We anticipate the first part of the meeting to finish around 8:30, and then we'll go into a meet and greet, and there will be snacks and beverages at the back, and these are being provided by the Maple Ridge Teachers Association. And then we thank Helmy for being our timer. And just to make a clarification, there are no questions from the floor, but what we did, we canvassed every website, neighborhood group, everything we could find. We probably got sent in around 30 questions, probably a few more, and we sifted through them to find the best. So these questions are your questions. We had no part in making them up. So now I will hand you over to our moderator, Clive Williams.
Thank you, Janet, and good evening to all of you. Welcome. My name is Clive Williams, and I'm honored and privileged to be asked to participate in tonight's event as the host moderator. I was a proud member of the Thorn Hill community for 38 years, and recently for 1 year in Pitt, Meadows. So I have deep roots in one area of the riding and little shallow roots in the other. But, so like all of you, not only do I have a personal stake in this riding, but also, like all of you, I have just as big a stake in the great big riding of Canada. Briefly, my career background was in education, as an elementary school teacher, then as a school principal. Politically, I am not affiliated with any political party. My task here this evening is a simple one. Keep the train on the time and on track. So far, I'm 0 for 1. The proceedings will go as follows. Alphabetically, I will ask each candidate for an opening statement. They introduce themselves and their affiliated party. Then, perhaps to express why they are putting their names forward to represent you, and why they are qualified to do so. Or they may choose to use their 2-minute time for however they want to introduce themselves.
There's steps. You don't have to know.
You show up for your job this late?
Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond with a warning given after 30 seconds. Helmy will raise the card when 30 seconds are left, exactly. And then at the 2 minutes, she will put an end to their discussion by ringing the bell. Once the introductory statements have been made, the questioning section will begin. Questions, as Janet mentioned, have been submitted through various sources by the public. They've been scrutinized and formulated by the debate committee to a list of 10 or 12 major themes. And I think you can probably guess what those 10 or 12 major themes are. I will begin again alphabetically to start by posing the question to candidate number 1. And they're just going to be alphabetically. He, in this case, will be given 2 minutes to respond, and then candidate 2 will be given 2 minutes for them to either respond to that or present their own views. The process will continue through candidate 3, 4, and 5. Question number 2 then will be posed to candidate number 2. He or she will then be the first to respond to that, and the responses will be 3, 4, 5, and 1. When we run through that complete cycle, we will have 5 questions, 5 rounds. By then, I think we will be ready for a little stretch, and not long, 5-minute, 10-minute break. So to begin, I'm going to ask Peter Buttle to start us off. Peter?
Good evening, Maple Ridge. Thank you for coming. And I guess I'm asking or thanking you in advance for voting. That's the really most important thing you can do here. So, I'm supposed to introduce myself. You heard my name. You know I'm here for the Rhinoceros Party. And why would I do this? Why would I put my name on the ballot as a rhinoceros candidate? Well, why not? I mean, it was fairly easy. It's free. And I got to participate in some community involvement. To get my name on the ballot, I needed a certain number of signatures, a little over 100. So I just walked around, met people, and in doing so, they told me their political beliefs, their concerns, without really any prompting. And that was really, really wonderful. It was fantastic to hear what everybody had to say. So you'll hear some of that back tonight. In fact, you'll hear quite a bit tonight. I think the operative term is gaslighting. Now, you've been saying it wrong all these years. It's not gaslighting, it's gaslighting. And you're gonna get, I hope everybody brought a little bread too, because you're gonna get nice, big, thick slices of weapons-grade polonium. So I hope you can enjoy yourself. I hope you have a good time, learn something, make your vote choice if you haven't already, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the teachers and for the other organizers who put this together.
Mr. Dalton?
Hello everyone, it's great to be here, and my apologies, I went from the very far back, I didn't have to walk here, so anyways, it has been an honor to be able to represent you as Member of Parliament for 6 years, and prior to that, the MLA for about 8 years. I know the constituency well. I've got a passion. I fight for this community. I do everything I can to make a difference. It could be, I don't know how many of you are from Whonnock, this area here. Years ago, you had lots of problems with blackouts. Maybe you still might have occasional ones, but that was something I was able to do. The hydro put more transmission lines. It could be transportation with the school busing. I was able to change that in my government to make sure that the kids could get a ride to Garibaldi. Now that may have changed also, okay? It is also, as a member of parliament, I see, I hear issues, I talk to thousands of people in forums I hold, in door-to-door, throughout the community. And for me, it is representing you, first of all. That's where, a lot of times it's not my ideas that I advocate with inside of the caucus. It is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing here locally. And I have just had my 4th granddaughter born. And so I have a vision for my kids and my grandkids. That's what is so important. And I am finding so many young people. Now the red slate means finish? 30 seconds. Okay, so we're finding a lot of young people that are joining, that are following, that are voting for Conservatives. Why? Because they want a future. Because it is so challenging to get a new place. I was a first-year teacher When I was a first-year teacher in the school district, I bought a new condo, brand new condo. My wife is really a stay-at-home mom. That's an impossibility now.
Mr. Heidenreich?
Good evening, everyone. Great turnout tonight, so that's awesome. My name is Daniel Heidenreich. I am originally from South Africa, and so I'm obviously an immigrant and a recent citizen. My background is primarily in the military. I was in the South African forces during the 1994 elections that saw Mandela get into power. I served in the British Army for a while, where I did humanitarian peacekeeping work and reconstruction and development programs in Iraq. And after that, I did a lot of work with humanitarian relief efforts with various NGOs and aid agencies and election observers around the world. And so, just to speed things up, not do the whole bio, but why I'm running is that I'm obviously very invested in social programs, helping those that are more vulnerable, that are marginalized, that are in need. That's what I've done pretty much my whole life. And there's a big need for that here. Right? For the last 8 years, I've worked for the Jewish community as the director of security, seeing the huge spikes in hate crime and incidents against the community. I also worked side by side trying to help the BC Muslim Association set up a similar program because we're all facing the same types of threats from the same groups. And so making sure that we're all singing off the same song sheet there, and so they don't have to basically reinvent the wheel. So we did a lot of interfaith safety and security workshops. And what I saw in all my time around the world is a lot of obviously hate and extremism. So coupled with social programs and trying to stop the Americanization of our Canadian programs and our Canadian systems, specifically healthcare, making sure that we put forward a lot of affordable housing, because that's a huge issue right now. We're going to touch on all these issues, so I'm not going to expand on them now, but that's just a little overview of my background and my reasons for running.
Mr. Leonard?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I am not a career politician, but I'm learning as I go. I got involved because I was tired of feeling powerless, but I knew I had to do something rather than nothing. I'm originally from Montreal. I'm a first generation Canadian from immigrant parents. Spent a little bit of time in Ontario and then over here in BC. Lived in several towns throughout the Lower Mainland since about the mid-90s. So I've had some exposure to the issues that go on around here. My answers will probably be short and sweet. If I don't have an answer, I'm not going to fill it with any fluff. I'll tell you I don't have that answer, but I have an email address and I can probably get that for you afterwards if you want to connect. Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Ms. Rowell?
Hello, everyone. Thank you again to the organizers this evening and for everybody for getting out of your house, driving here, and making the effort to be here. My name is Angie Rowell. I'm running for the Liberal Party. I was born and raised in Maple Ridge. I've lived here my whole life, raised my children here. We've been part of the public school system. I went to school at Garibaldi. My kids went to MRSS after going to Ladyview. And I've spent my career of almost 40 years working in financial services. I had no intention of running for office, and kind of my story of why I'm here tonight is when the threats from the US became more obvious and more upsetting, I, like many of you, had concerns. And then when Mark Carney announced his candidacy for the leadership of the party and then was named as the party leader, I was inspired. I thought, here is a person who has the financial skill set and experience, and an individual who has run 2 central banks in the world, the connections that he has, his, as an economist from Harvard, and I just couldn't think of somebody better to lead the country. So I decided to put my name forward for the Liberal Party, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation with the candidates here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you, audience. Our first question, our first theme, Peter Buttle will be the first to speak to that, and then we'll follow that order again for their response or rebuttal. And question number 2 will begin with Mr. Dalton, and we'll follow that again. This is a critical time in Canada's history when our economy and even our existence as an independent country are under attack. It is therefore urgent that Canadians be united and not divided. What steps will your party take to unite us? Mr. Butler.
Well, thank you. I thought about this quite hard, and I believe that the way to unite Canadians is with zip ties and perhaps tying our shoelaces together, possibly making belts, super glue in a pinch. I can't really think of any better way to bind people together.
Mr. Dalton, same question. I can repeat the question, or you can just...
Oh, thank you for the question. And, you know, we certainly are in a very challenging time. I certainly deplore Trump's, comments, his ambitions of annexation, economic, whatever it may be, and it's interference in Canada. I was in the military, in the Canadian military, and was raised up in a military family. And so I must admit that it's really caused me to shake my head and say, what country is this? When we've had ties with NATO, we've had ties NORAD, we've had ties with the United Nations, we've fought wars, and so it is deplorable, the comments. And I really, I admire and I appreciate the rally around the Canadian flag and to really stand and say, listen, we are a separate people. We love our country, and we will never become the 51st state. So that said, I want to also say that the past 10 years under the Liberal government has been a time of division. Whether it's based upon ethnicities, regions, Alberta, Quebec, vaccination status, dividing people, and it has been one of the most divisive times in Canadian history, long before Mr. Trump has come. So I condemn that, and I feel that we need to come together under, no matter what you are, what we are, a Canadian is a Canadian. And so I would say there are also other emerging threats. China, communist China, Russia. We need to rebuild our military, which has been allowed to become in a very deplorable situation, which we find it right now. And the thing is, there's always comments about, we're going to increase the funding, but I talked to the colonel in charge of the reserve forests, and they said that it was actually cut by 50% of training last year. They don't even have money for bullets.
Mr. Heidenreich.
So that's obviously an emphatic yes. We are in a critical time. But this topic is a bit of an umbrella topic. So we're going to touch on a lot of the actual probably solutions or issues that tie into this as we go through the evening with a lot of the other questions. So this is an overarching kind of thing. We need to tackle cost of living crisis, affordable housing. We need to ensure that we have decent education that includes academic and trades, right, to make sure we fill all the niches and the various gaps in our communities. Fast-tracking qualification conversions for immigrants, skilled immigrants that are coming into the country, making sure that we are getting rid of interprovincial barriers, and also forging new alliances and trading partners around the world, getting away from a reliance on American-based vendors and military procurement. So basically, and one of the other things is making sure that we spend a lot more money internally, build Canadian, buy Canadian, because if we spread that wealth around locally, a rising tide raises all boats.
Mr. Leonard?
So, what can unite us all? Love. You can't bury love. Hate, as much as someone might try and push it on you, temporary at best. I gave this one some thought too, and I think it doesn't matter what your belief system is. You could probably identify that your own belief system is this intangible love that flows through the universe, and I think we're all a part of that. I think if we start tapping into that, it can probably overcome the divisiveness that's really happened over the past handful of years, just the COVID years, whatever side you're on. We probably all lost some friends from that. Yeah, so that's my answer. Whatever shape that takes, whatever policy or issue is on the table, if you apply love to it, I don't see how it could fail. Thank you.
Ms. Rowell?
Well, in addition to what you said, Chris, and beautiful comments, building one economy and not 13 is what is going to unite us. By Canada Day, the Liberal Party will have legislation on the table that will enable labor mobility throughout the country and remove any trade barriers between provinces. We need interprovincial trade if we want to be competitive and be prosperous within the country. And there's just no reason why any Canadian employee shouldn't be able to work in any part of Canada.
Thank you, panel. For question number 2, we will begin with Mr. Dalton and then the process through. In light of Canada's declining birth rate, how does your party feel about our present immigration policies? What are your planned immigration targets for the next 4 years, 10 years? And would the targets be reduced because of tariffs and the resulting unemployment?
Thank you. We're a nation of immigrants, so we certainly welcome people from all over the world, whatever color, whatever ethnicity, whatever language. And we've had one of the best immigration systems in the world. And that has, over the past few years, has been really stretched and challenged in the sense that we have been bringing in more immigrants than we're able to properly house, provide health care, provide jobs. So it's not fair for immigrants to come here and to not be able to have the opportunities that previous immigrants. So we will ensure that the immigration levels correspond to the abilities in housing, in our healthcare system, with job markets, and that can grow, and that can shrink. It needs to be a bit more flexible. So that's important. I had one fellow, his name is Mohammed, he came to my office today, and he said, I've always voted Liberal. He said, but not this time. And he said he moved here maybe 15 years ago, and he's seen the decline and the stresses. And so we need to do all we can for Canadians here and also for new immigrants. So that is one thing. And we will also ensure that there is, we're a place for refugees. We just want to ensure that when people also come here, that the appropriate background checks are done. And the that they are coming here to be able to prosper. Because this gentleman here, he said he came with nothing. And I mean, so many people have come with nothing and able to make a great living. That is not the case today.
Mr. Heidenreich?
I touched on this a little bit already, but one of the things that we need to do with regards to immigration is fast-tracking skilled immigrants into the Canadian economy. You have people that are engineers, they're doctors, they're nurses. They have the points to get into the immigration system and get into Canada. But then once they are here, their qualifications don't count anymore. And then their education doesn't count, and their trades don't count. And so they get stuck doing menial jobs, not earning a living, and not contributing the way that they should be. So obviously housing is a big issue, drain on healthcare is a big issue. A lot of the people that are doctors, nurses, and that will be fixing some of those problems if we can get them into the system properly. So get them in, and that helps prevent unemployment and alleviates the burden on the communities that they're in. Speeding up residencies for doctors and other medical professionals. Part of the provincial immigration plans is that they can get fast-tracked if they're going to work in certain areas that are in need. We need to make sure we enforce that at the federal level, get people in and put them in the communities that are in dire need of medical professionals. I don't want to harp on just the medical side of things. There's a ton of other industries where immigrants can be really, really beneficial to Canadian society. And it's just making sure that we bring them in for in-demand jobs and help them get into those jobs quickly and appropriately. We'll touch on the housing and the other medical stuff with future questions.
Mr. Leonard?
So a few questions were asked there at once. I can touch on as many as I can. First one's probably the obvious, immigration. It's probably on everyone's mind. Canada's a pretty special place, and I think it's okay to vet people who want to join the club. My father came here with a suitcase full of clothes and $3 in his pocket, jumped through hoops, and made it work. I gave this one some thought too. I think we're asking the wrong question. I think if you replace the word immigration with the word vacancy, I think it calms the playing field down a little bit. It's not a matter of who someone's from, where they're from, who they are. It's really just logistics. We're Canada, as far as population, even Maple Ridge, we're a small but mighty team. And we need to make sure people coming here, there will always be growth that way, but we need to be fair to them that we're able to take them in properly. They're not coming here with nowhere to go, nothing to do. It's joking around with another candidate of mine. I said, at the rate that the immigration's been promised, where are they going to go? Like tents at the Arctic Circle? That's not fair to people who are in Canada who wouldn't want to live there. So I think if we just think of it, take a bit of emotion out, think of vacancy and logistics, we'd be able to proceed.
Ms. Rowell?
I think all of us know that immigration is foundational to the fabric of what has built Canada. But I think we all know it's obvious we have the numbers of people coming in through our immigration program. We were not well equipped to serve them, and we owe them a responsibility. We have a responsibility to them. Forgive me. I agree. We need to fast track skilled workers. There's no question about that. We all have heard these stories. We know these experiences. And our systems need to be smart and agile. And in the environment that we're in, as things are changing quickly with our trading partners, as we know, and we'll talk more about that, we need to adjust based on what is happening. And Again, it's been too high. It needs to be sustainable, and we need to support the people that are coming in. Thank you.
And Mr. Butler.
Well, thank you. If we can keep the birth rate down like it is, then within a couple of generations, we won't all be fighting for apartments and places to live. There's a lot less competition. And I don't want to contradict anyone here, although there were some really good ideas brought up at this group. I don't see why we don't fill the place up from the top down. So, you know, all the new immigrants, we'll send them like right up to Nunavut, and I'm sure they'll figure out something to do. There's lots to do there. Lots to explore, lots to discover, and eventually, you know, granted that people want to live in the big urban centers like obviously here and Toronto and Edmonton and Montreal. We can start them off a little bit further north, let them get used to it, let them get used to the cold, let them get used to the trees, to the wildlife. It'll all work out. I'm sure it'll all work.
Thank you, panel. Our third question, we will start with Mr. Eigenreich. What is you or your party's position on post-secondary education training and funding?
Okay, so post-secondary education is vital, right? If we have well-educated population, that's not just academic, that's skilled tradesmen as well. That helps build economies, that helps get people working. So one of the NDP plans is to make sure that we, over time, however long we can get it as quick as possible, is to turn post-secondary education just into public education, so that from birth to getting a job, you are in the system and we are providing for you. I come from South Africa originally, but when I was in the UK, my education was funded partly by the government and partly by my military service. There are ways to get this done. There are plenty of, in Scotland, if you live in Scotland, it's completely free. Your undergrad is free. So it's part of the public education system. Various European places do that. It is possible to do. It is not a massive drain on the economy because the net gain from having skilled people back into the workforce is just, it's a benefit and it's an absolute boon. So that's one of the big things that the NDP wants to work towards, is make it part of the public education system.
Mr. Leonard?
Post-secondary education. It's the student loans, man. They can get ridiculous. It'd probably be the first and most practical approach. Reduce or have no interest loans, and the loan amount reduced where government can help subsidize the rest of it. That'd probably be the first point of attack. Would probably be the loans themselves, making them more livable. And this way, you're not going to school for 4 years to work for 8 years to pay it off afterwards. So, kind of one of those never-ending debts. Kind of help take care of those.
Mr. Allen?
When I think of post-secondary education, I think of two pieces. I think of the trades and how we need to invest in trades. The Liberal government has made a commitment to additional tax benefits and credits for when you're working away from home. If you're a pipe fitter and you're working up north, you have expenses associated with getting there, and we need to be helping and supporting with that. We also need to, with the other piece we'll talk about in a little bit is building houses and the trades that we need to do that. It is going to be a great time to be in the trades with the investments that we will be making to build homes throughout Canada. As for post-secondary, I think it was probably 30 years ago when I was on the Parks and Leisure Services Commission when I saw a proposal to have a post-secondary education facility built in Maple Ridge. We are the largest area within British Columbia, a community that does not have a post-secondary education facility, and we need one. We are. And to make that happen, we need the provincial government, the federal government, First Nations, everybody at the table, our community, to make that happen. So that is also on my list of takeaways. It needs to be addressed, and we need to have that conversation.
Mr. Buttle?
I've worked in this community for 23 years of my career as a teacher, and primarily I was teaching adults. In order to get into post-secondary education, you have to finish your secondary education. So that was my primary role here, was to help people get either finish or to upgrade their marks in order to get into post-secondary education. And that, too, was a big, big struggle for people. It doesn't cost that much to take a course, but it's a matter of childcare, and it's a matter of getting to the school, completing the work, doing all the things that have to be done. That's a challenge too, and I tried to reward my students as much as I could, but there's only so much I could do. I'm not sure about the education levels of the other people on the panel here. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. They were not easy to obtain. And I recognize, of course, and I will, again, support the points already brought up by the others here that, in particular, trades will be a big growth industry here. So, as much as we can do to get people ready for trades, get ready for any kind of post-secondary education would be wonderful. Another thing is that frequently, that I hear in the media anyway, people that are educated are considered elite, considered woke. I think it's nonsense, okay? If people understand something about history and understand something about empathy and psychology, you know, we can call them woke. It's not the insult they think it is.
So I am a teacher by profession in this school district. I've been taught many years, both at the secondary and the elementary levels. And certainly, you know, I do have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in educational leadership and French and history. So I've always encouraged my kids and others to gain an education. I think it's so important. But I will say, there's a report that just came out, I might refer to it a couple of times, for the government, by the government, for the Privy Council that said, and it was talking about the current trends, and in the year 2040, if things keep on going. And they said that in 2040, which isn't really that far away, pursuing post-secondary education is no longer considered a reliable path to social mobility. Now, what do I mean by that? That means getting ahead. And they're saying that you even get your degrees, it's not going to be a path. And that's why you're seeing so many, even students that have gone and got their degrees, staying at home because they can't afford it. They can't afford to pay the rent. And I don't blame them. I blame what's going on here. I blame government in some respects. And why is that? Because we have basically we basically suppressed our industries. And by that, because of things such as net zero, putting tariffs on our own industry, such as forestry, such as fishing, farming, oil and gas, mining, everything there, we have basically pushed down the opportunities for wealth and for jobs for young people. And that is why you go to our rallies where thousands of people are. That is filled with people from trades and young people wanting to get ahead. And I just think that we need to, I'm hoping that you will vote Conservative, because we want these young people that will be providing for people like me, I'm a boomer, to provide the resources for our health care and for CTP and everything else. We need them. We need to let them get ahead.
Thank you, panel. And Mr. Leonard, you get first crack at this question.
All right.
Canada's 2030 emissions reduction plan states that subsidies to the oil and gas industry will be stopped. Based on our present tensions with our neighbor to the south, how do you feel about this policy?
This policy, 2030, it's a bit unattainable. Too much too soon. If you crack open any book of world history, humans don't really react well to a change that's cold turkey. But a slow integration of converting to different types of fuel sources is much more achievable and attainable. Much more smarter way of approach rather than forcing it down people's throats, what they may or may not want for themselves. So probably a better solution would be not 2030, but probably realistically probably 2050 or maybe even beyond. That'd be more palatable.
Thank you. Ms. Rawl?
So we've been subsidizing the export of raw fuel products for decades. We ship it to the US where it's refined and it comes back and we pay a premium for it. We have made decisions within the country that we don't want to build refineries. These are very difficult decisions and we're seeing the implications of this now. We are in a difficult spot and we need to start making some more difficult choices. And while it's not easy to change our habits, the fact is we have to. Is 2030 the right number? I can't speak to that, but I know that we need to be making those changes sooner or quicker than we have in the past. As far as subsidies, if we're not subsidizing that raw fuel to ship to the US and it's not financially viable, we will have other solutions that we could subsidize here at home, and we could be supporting green energy and cleaner technology solutions, and we could use those subsidies to do that versus subsidize the US.
Mr. Buttle?
As always, excellent points brought up by the other candidates. And to expand upon them a little bit, I think many of us were brought up in youth groups such as the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Brownies and things like that, where there was a strong ecological focus. And I think that carries on through a lot of people's lives. I think that what we learn as children in terms of protecting the environment, I think a lot of us do what we can to recycle and to use as little resources as possible. Myself this evening, not to toot my own horn, which I may do later, I come up here in a vehicle that gets approximately 100 miles to a gallon. I come up here on a little scooter from the 80s. I think if we were to think more along the lines of what we can do individually, that will help a lot. Now, on the other hand, on the other side of this question, because these questions are pretty dense. One of the, and I mean dense, I mean thick, like there's a lot in there. The subsidies question about, for companies that are supposed to be multi-billion-dollar profit corporations, why are we subsidizing that with tax dollars?
Mr. Dalton?
Yes, so I agree with that as far as subsidies. And it's very unfortunate that Trans-Canada Pipeline was subsidized to a tune of between $35 and $40 billion of your money, when it shouldn't have cost us one nickel. In that sense, it was with Kinder Morgan, it would have cost $9 billion. Instead, the Liberals decided to buy it and build it, and we're paying for that. That is not good. And we do. Japan came to Canada, Europe came to Canada, they wanted our LNG, they wanted our resources, but we basically told them, we'll see if there's a business case. And so where did they go? They went to the United States, they went elsewhere. And 97% of our oil exports are being sold to the US, which puts us in a position of being blackmailed by Trump. So we do need to diversify. And the fact that we haven't diversified, we haven't got other markets, the blame belongs on this government. And I will keep on mentioning that. They've been in for 10 years, and the economy has been flat. And even as far as the carbon tax, which we have been pushing back on for years, and they kept on telling us, well, the world's going to burn down if this happens. Well, it's not the case. I will say it has been a tax grab, not an environmental plan. It's almost all of it goes to general revenues. Conservatives believe in innovation. One example, and I've mentioned this in previous debate, if Canada was to sell our LNG to India and replace just half of the expected increase in the next 20 years of demand, they would reduce their emissions by 2.5 billion tons, which is 3 times more than shutting down the entire economy. So why can't Canada do that? Build, get the jobs here, provide something for all of the world, because global climate change, pollution, all these things isn't just around our borders. It's a global, we're in a whole world together.
Mr. Heinrich?
So we've kind of covered my talking points already, but I'll go on. So subsidies to oil and gas is obviously bad. These companies post insane profits, and their executives get hundreds of millions in bonuses, and all that money doesn't end up in the tax that goes towards you guys. It ends up in offshore havens, it ends up in foreign accounts. We don't reap the benefit of that. If there's going to be subsidies, we need to slowly phase those out for the oil and gas and put green, more environmentally friendly, more sustainable solutions on an equal playing field, and give them subsidies as well to get them up and running. It's not hard to do, right? If we're giving away millions and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to these companies, we can afford to give it to the more sustainable solutions.
Thank you, panel. And Ms. Rowell, you get first back at this question. What changes would you make, or your party make, to Canada's military to reduce integration and dependence on American military personnel, systems, and equipment?
Thank you. Well, first of all, we need to meet our NATO requirements. I mean, we have to do it. We haven't done it, it has to happen. We need to pay our military a living wage. They stand up for us when we need them. We need to stand up for them. A big piece of this as well is around procurement. And I'm amazed how procurement seems to have taken over the world in so many ways. But we need to be buying from trusted partners and allies, and buying from Canadian companies to fulfill our needs within the military and other parts of government as well. That alone is a significant investment benefit to the country.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you would have read a book called War is a Racket by General Smedley Butler from the U.S. Marines, but I think we find ourselves in Canada under the same situation as Mr. Butler, or as I think it was Admiral? No, General Butler, that wrote the book War is a Racket. Recommended, by the way. What's happened in Canada for most of my lifetime is that Canada has more or less exchanged our natural resources with the United States rather freely and at a good rate, in order to have the kind of protection that the United States was providing us. That's a done deal. Like that's in the past now. But there's a big world out there. There's a big planet. And there are other partners that are willing to partner up with us. So while we are getting our military up in terms of numbers and strength, we can partner with other nations and other groups, for example, the EU, to get protection from them. And I think they'd be willing to provide it. I also remember I'm turning 60, I'm quite an old man now, that Canada's military role was once one of peacekeeping on the planet, not one of again, like General Smedley Butler said, a racket where it's really henchmen for military or for the industrial complex, and that's really got to change. It'd be wonderful if we could get Canada back on the track of nation building and peacekeeping.
We once had, in the post-war years, the third largest air force and the fourth largest navy in the world, with aircraft carriers, with hundreds of airplanes. I'm not saying that we need to be, that ranking anymore, but it's a shame where we are right now. We've let it be degraded. We have an armed forces now that has less than the number of people in the Royal Canadian Air Force at one time. And Trump, he uses that. He told Trudeau, he said, well, listen, you guys don't protect yourselves. You don't protect anything. Why don't you just keep on doing your thing? We'll absorb you. And so that is an insult, and we do need to protect ourselves. We need to rebuild our forces, and a conservative government will rebuild the Canadian Armed Forces. We will increase the number of reserves to 30,000, and the regular force is 71,500 within 18 months. We'll be able to build new bases in the Arctic, one in Iqaluit, and also a naval base in Churchill. We're going to re-equip, and we're going to make it so that people can get training. I talk to people that they say they don't even have the funds to train. They can't shoot they have no ammo, and this is absolute disgrace. We have a tremendous heritage. We need to be prepared for war. Yes, my dad was a peacekeeper in Egypt, but he was also in the military. So you need to have a strong military in both respects, and to be taken seriously, because right now Canada is not taken seriously as far as our military.
So I'm in the military still. I'm a serving reserve officer in Vancouver. So I feel these cuts because I do a bit of work in recruiting. The recruiting process is abysmal. It takes a very long time for people to get in the system, and that's part of the issue. It's just getting them in the door. We lose a lot of folks just because they get fed up with the process. So that's a huge thing, getting people in. The next thing is retention, making sure we have the funding to actually train and keep people interested in the job is a huge, huge problem that we're facing right now. When it comes to divesting from the US, there are fantastic European military vendors that provide good systems that we can take on board. For example, the Saab, the Griffin fighter jet program, they offer to build them in Canada, so we get a good system, we get factories, we get work, so it's a win-win for us. So we should divest from the American contracts, divest from the American system, focus more on more reliable and trustworthy European partners who don't say that they're going to disable our equipment if they don't like what we're doing, and it'll enhance our interoperability when we deploy with them on NATO missions, on UN missions. We do a lot of peacekeeping missions still, but not to the number and to the extent that we used to, so that's obviously an issue. And we should really focus more on that and regain our credibility on the world stage in that front. Part of bolstering our military also really helps domestic operations. Something that we do every single year is I send dozens and dozens of soldiers away to work on the flooding, to work on the fires, to work during COVID in long-term care homes. That's not their normal job, but it's what they do because it helps the community and it helps Canada. And so a stronger military helps us all.
And Mr. Lennon.
Well, the military, it's unfortunately a shell of what it once was. There's not enough ammunition for target practice. I think there's 2 battleships that can patrol the Arctic, and those are old and falling apart. Recruitment's at an all-time low. I don't have an immediate answer on this one, but probably a good first step would be putting the process in reverse. I think the military's been all the funding that's been cut, backtrack and replenish and go from there to bring it back to its glory, because it's a good thing we're polite, because I don't think Canada could handle any kind of invasion right now. So, but we shouldn't wait and kind of supply the military like we used to, and have pride in it like we used to. Thank you.
Thank you, panel. That concludes our first group of questions. We'll give you 5 minutes just to stand and stretch your legs, not a whole lot. When we return, when I ask everybody to come back, if you could do it promptly, we will reverse the order of questioning. In other words, I will start the first question with Ms. Rowell and work our way backwards and follow that process through. So everybody has that same opportunity. So 5. Thank you, panel, and thank you, audience. Our first question will be directed to Ms. Rowell. This is a lot like when I taught at Thornhill for a year and tried to bring the kids in from recess. It's been a long time, but it's coming back. Beginning with Ms. Rowell, your question. Each party has made billions of dollars in spending announcements, including this carbon tax elimination, and at the same time promised fiscal responsibility. What cuts will be made to achieve this?
So I just had a question from a gentleman on the break saying, are you not concerned about what appears to be a Liberal government who historically has not been concerned about fiscal responsibility? And I said, I do agree, fiscal responsibility is important. But I will say there's two kinds of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. In the 1950s, after we went on an extreme spending in support after the war, building homes, supporting people, we were at about 5% of GDP was our debt. Right now, we're about 1.5%. And while it is a significant number, and I don't mean to minimize it because debt is nothing to mess with or to take on lightly, I will say again, there's good debt and there's bad debt. Good debt is investing in our country. Good debt is investing in infrastructure. And good debt is investing in our people. And we have to do that now. We have neglected spending on infrastructure for too long, and that will change under a Carney government.
Mr. Leonard.
Money. So, the numbers I've heard in the last week are not great. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the past 10 years, our debt has doubled compared to all of the previous 148 years combined. We're now at 1.2 something trillion. What really drove that home to me is it's a 1 and a 2 followed by 12 zeros. Yeah, it's astronomical. Covering money like that, the spending in the last 10 years has pretty much been borderline out of control. And a little bit reckless, a little bit irresponsible. The PPC stance on that would be cutting back on bloated government spending and reducing the size of government and freeing up what the government doesn't need to use back into the economy and the people of the country. Thank you.
Mr. Heidenreich?
This is going to sound a little bit like repetition, but we shouldn't need to make too many cuts. There's enough money out there that's not being paid into the system that we need to make sure that we get. So stopping the offshore tax havens, making people pay their fair share, people that brag about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars per year but pay less tax or no tax, pay less tax than any one of you in this room, they should be held accountable. We touched on this already, stopping the oil and gas subsidies. Again, they post crazy profits. The executives talk crazy profits. They don't need the handouts. They don't need the welfare. That needs to go back into the system and support social programs and education. So the question is about cuts. I don't think we need to make too many cuts. We need to actually get the money into the system that it should be in the system.
So when the Conservatives were last in, we ended up with a surplus. We've had a decade of fiscal irresponsibility. And that has we're now paying over $50 billion of interest charges. We're adding, the plan, by the way, the Liberal plan was all, their election plan was already laid out before Mr. Carney came in. And he added an extra $125 billion to this over the next 4 years. Bloomberg says this is recipe for disaster or just for stagnation. With the Conservative plan will reduce, we're not going to be going into a surplus for some time. We are, but we're going to be 70% less than the Liberals. And it has been certified by the Chief Economic Analysis Statistics Canada, Dr. Tim Sargent, and Phillips Cross, former, and also the Associate Deputy Minister of Finance Canada. So you can look it up online about all our promises, if they are costed out and they make sense. And one commitment we're making is we are not raising taxes. We will only raise taxes through a referendum. So that's our philosophy. We want you to keep more money in your pockets because it's expensive. We're not looking at ways to get in your pockets. We want, and so whether you're a senior, whether you're a young person, you are going to be fiscally better off, whether it's the income tax, which is which the average earner of $57,000 in Canada will see a 15% reduction, just in that alone. And we have so many different breaks to make life easier and more affordable because you deserve it.
Mr. Buttle?
It's easy to look up the amounts, the expenditure amounts throughout the various governments for, I think you can go back pretty darn far now. In my lifetime, I remember one government leaving a surplus. At any rate, I think the question was a little bit incorrect or a little bit incomplete because the Right Honour's parties made absolutely no promises whatsoever. Okay. Thank you. So the only cut that I would personally bring forward would be that if I was elected, I would, like, the first thing I would do, day one in Parliament, I would bring in a bill to reduce the salary of every monster of Parliament by 10%. If they're going to come at us if these millionaires are going to come at us and tell us to tighten our belts, they better do it first.
Mr. Leonard, you get to answer this first. How should Canada work with China, the EU, and other global trading partners to strengthen our economy and lessen our reliance on the U.S.?
I personally don't have an immediate answer on this one, but could probably learn from the current game of tariff one-upsmanship that we're currently experiencing. Whoever we end up working with, just lay everything out on the table and just have that talk. If you don't sit down and find out, what the other half wants to do or how they want to help or how we can help them. I'm in IT. When that happens, you're working with incomplete data. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not just sitting down and having that talk. I mean, the worst answer could be no. And we're back where we started. At least we know where we are. That'd be the first step, just open communication and see the other side of the view and see what can be offered and go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Heidenreich?
So we don't have the capacity, at least not yet, to do everything we need to do within Canada. We have to have reliable trading partners in order to develop the country, develop the economy, to grow. So we need to, and this is what the point of the question, move away from our reliance on America. It harkens back to the military question, the same thing, just on a larger scale. Move away from our reliance on American companies, American trading, American logistics, American everything, and separate ourselves as much as possible from that system. The European Union is a huge trading bloc with a ton of really good industries that we can partner with, that we can work with, and we can use those to help grow our own economy until we're able to be a bit more self-sufficient. Use that time to develop more industries here locally. And if we have to move outside of the EU into other trading blocs, specifically Southeast Asia, China, there are real threats with partnering with certain countries. Do that on a case-by-case basis. There are some things that we inevitably have to trade with people that we aren't very happy with, but do it on a case-by-case basis to make sure that it actually benefits us and it can be done safely and doesn't leave us vulnerable to any kind of manipulation or harassment down the line like America is currently doing to us.
So tariffs, one thing about tariffs is that you place it on your own people. So Trump putting tariffs on our goods, guess what? That makes it more expensive for those same goods, whether it be vehicles, whether it be anything we produce, it makes it more expensive. And he's doing that with other countries. There's an election every 2 years, not for president in the United States. And so that's a good thing. And there's a lot of disconcern down south, even for people that voted for him, about with the stock markets. So that is a good thing. But we need to come from a position of strength. We can't be dependent upon the states. We have got products, we have got wealth, we have some of the biggest oil reserves in the world, mineral reserves, forestry, everything. We have so much wealth. We need to develop our other partners. And they've come to us, but we've said no. The Liberals have stopped so many projects worth hundreds of millions of billions of dollars of investment here, keeping us stagnant. As a matter of fact, $500 billion has gone down to the States, including Mr. Carney's company, who moved there a few days after Trump was elected, who actually also shelters his money and his company in tax havens such as Cayman Islands, such as Bermuda, and this is a shame. I can assure you, if this was a conservative prime minister, it would be relentless what he is doing. And yes, he's doing it on behalf of his company, but you know what? They're not paying their taxes in Canada, and a conservative government will change some of these loopholes for offshore tax havens.
Thank you. Just to clarify a point there, the tax havens, the offshore tax havens, were set up by the Harper government. Now, getting back to the point, this is, sure. I'm give credit where credit is due. This is not my idea. I was in conversation with a couple of other rhinos the other day. We were attempting a podcast, and I don't know if it will ever be released, but we actually use these questions, the questions that were provided for this discussion tonight, as starting place to work with. And when this question came up, one of the other rhinos had this brilliant plan that would completely solve this issue, and that is to annex China and make them the fourth territory.
Ms. Rao?
Peter, thank you. So again, we've got difficult choices to make. Whether we like NAFTA or the USMCA, whether we like these agreements or not, we can't do everything on our own at this point. Can we do a better job? Can we become more self-reliant? Do we have to? Yes, yes, and yes. But this, just sitting here looking at my phone right now, just made me think. To make this phone in North America, some estimates say it would be upwards of $30,000. The reality is that free trade has lowered our cost of living in many, many ways. When you have someone who can, or a company or a country that specializes in certain products and they have the resources, that benefits all of us. When we can trade our products that we have that are available to us, whether it's our lumber, our oil, it just has to be done with a trusted trading partner. For over 200 years, the US was that trading partner, and now we know the world is different. So whether it's the EU, any other country that we're looking at, we're always going to have trade. We need trade. Trade is a good thing. It just has to be with trusted partners.
And Mr. Heidenreich, can you field this first? How do you plan to address community safety and crime prevention in Pitt, Meadows, and Maple Ridge? The current catch and release approach, including Bill C-75 and Bill C-5, has had a detrimental impact on our communities. In light of rising crime rates, what proactive measures will you take to ensure residents feel safe?
So when policies that are brought in don't work anymore, or they didn't work to begin with, they need to be amended, or they need to be scrapped and replaced completely. And so if these things aren't working, if people are doing the complete revolving door, going in and back out the same day and committing the same crime, that needs to be addressed. So we do need to make sure that incarceration fits the crime, though. I'm not a fan of mandatory minimums. There are nuances to why people do what they do, and we need to take some of that into account when we are dealing with them on a case-by-case basis. When they are incarcerated, the focus needs to be on humane incarceration, education, and allowing for effective reintegration back into society. If you look at some of the European models, if you look at some of the Scandinavian models, they focus heavily on rehabilitation. They give people an education, they give people a trade. So when they come out, they have something to work towards, they have something to go to. They're not just back in the exact same place they started with. So that's something that I will focus on moving forward.
Okay, so in the past 10 years of the current government, violent crime has increased 50%, gun crime has increased 116%, homicides are up 28%, sexual assaults are up 75%, hate crime is up 250%, 50,000 people have died of opioid overdoses. It is a disaster. And people in Maple Ridge, the seniors, they're afraid of walking downtown. They never used to be that way, even a few years ago. My office is right downtown by Tim Hortons. I can tell you right now, there are stores closed all over the place. And why is that? It's because of what's going on in this community, which is a paradise. But what's happening here is because of this government, this liberal government, which has basically made the catch and release that they have to let them go as quick as possible in the least onerous conditions. So you've got 256 people in the last record that were killed in 1 year by people out on bail. That's what's happening in Canada. This is not a safe country, and that is because of the Liberals. And we can't, I'll tell you one thing right now, that under a Conservative government, you're going to see the biggest crackdown on crime in our history to bring back safe streets. Because we need and tough laws and more enforcement. Because I don't blame the police. The police are just doing their job, but they tell me they're so frustrated. I'm going to give you an example. The same 40 people were apprehended 5,000 times in 1 year in Vancouver. 1 year, 40 people. When the Conservatives were last in, the crime rate went down, and there was, you know what, how many people, the number of people in prison actually went down. Because if you get the repeat offenders, crime makes a big change. And I don't have time right now to talk about the opioid crisis. I hope to in a few minutes.
Mr. Whonnock.
My work in this community, as I said earlier, was teaching primarily adults, and my job was not just teaching adults, but most of it, in fact, the entire time that I was working here in Maple Ridge for School District 42, I was teaching in the jails. And the way to keep people from reoffending, okay, the way to lower recidivism is to educate them. Okay, it's proven, there's science, there's papers, there's all kinds of data to back this up. So, educate them, okay? Educate the poor, okay? Because poverty is the father of crime, okay? I'd say drugs is sort of like a distant uncle or something, okay? But those things compound to make a more difficult society. So, in terms of proactive steps, I don't know how many of you can do a show of hands if you feel like it. How many have a possession and acquisition license for firearms? I certainly do. Okay, very few. But I think, if you look at the Swiss model, where everyone is trained to use firearms, everyone's got them in their homes. You'll also notice they've got a very, very low crime rate. They've also got a very low gunshot rate. They've got a very low murder rate from guns. I propose that in high schools where we have things like driver's ed training that can be transferred to your transcript, I don't see any reason why people could not get a possession and acquisition license for firearms the same way. If everyone's armed, but for example, let's say society is going to blow up, let's say the roof is going to blow off the dump. Do you want the only people in your community that are armed to be cops and criminals? Because I do not.
Mr. Howell.
Roll.
So I think we can all see catch and release does not work, but neither does locking everybody up. I feel like I've said this at least 3 times already, forgive me, but these are tough choices. We're faced with tough choices. There's no one easy answer. If there was, every government before us would have done it. So there's no question we need additional support. The RCMP needs support. We'll be hiring more RCMP officers. We need more support at the border to make sure drugs, guns, bad things aren't coming into the country. But the reality is these people need support. As Peter said, we need education options for them in our community, and we need housing, and we will be focused on both of those.
Well, catch and release only works when you're fishing. people, not so much. A good first step would be repealing some of these bills. They're just not working. As far as doing the time if one does the crime, its length can be argued, but also while someone's incarcerated, not so much them just sitting there, but the root cause of why they had to feel like they might have to resort to crime in the first place, and get to that root cause. More rehabilitation than just sitting, running out the clock and trying again. Thank you.
And Mr. Dalton, you can start with this. The CBC has come under much criticism and scrutiny, especially in the realm of reporting bias and bloated salaries and bonuses. What is your assessment of the CBC, and would you suggest any changes?
Well, I would say that they do some things good. For example, French programming, il y a des personnes ici qui parlent français. Je pense que j'ai déjà parlé. Et est-ce qu'il y a des professeurs ici? Teachers here, raise your hand. Okay, great. Just thank you for the work that you guys do. So that's a really important thing, and I appreciate it, and conservatives will maintain that. Also, programming in the north. So there certainly is a place for CBC, but there is also a place that is directly competing with the public sector. And so we do believe that they need to stand on their own 2 feet through donations, through advertising, through programs that people want, just like everybody else, because it's not fair to the entire public sector. So that is one aspect. Also, I just want to criticize the fact that I think it was last year that they laid off 200 employees, and what did they do? They gave themselves big fat bonuses. About 110 people that were on top of it. So I don't think that's right. And so just in general, the Conservatives will be, one of the ways that cost measures will be looking at bureaucracy, bloated bureaucracy. That's a human tendency, just whether it's in companies or just to get bloated. So one of the ways that Conservatives are going to be working with bureaucracy is not through draconian layoffs and firings. It's more going to be through attritions. Through every 3 people that retire or leave, we'll hire 2 people back. So it's going to be more of a gradual aspect. So, thank you.
Mr. Butler?
I love the CBC. I don't know about everybody else. I don't spend a lot of time listening to the talk version. I listen to the classical music in the early part of the day, and the popular music and jazz programs. Okay? And I don't even have a TV, so I don't even know what they show on TV anymore. My daughter was employed by the CBC for a while. My daughter's a comedian, and she was writing for This Hour 22 Minutes for a couple of years. The CBC show, The Debaters, she was on that a number of times. So there was a number of things that were personally benefited me or my family, so I'm a little bit biased. But I've grown up loving the CBC. And one of the reasons that they don't have advertisers is that way they're not beholden to them. Okay, that way they don't have to censor the material that they put on so it doesn't offend their censors or offend their advertisers, pardon me. Which I think is a wonderful thing. And we find throughout the free world, throughout the G7, that there are state-sponsored media that are equally loved. We have, even in the United States, they have NPR, which coincidentally is on the chopping block with the new government down there. So I think that maybe an objective news source or information source that's state-sponsored, I think there's a place for it.
Mr. Hall?
I love the CBC. The Liberal government will support the CBC. The CBC has been uniting Canadians from coast to coast for my lifetime and longer. We need a supply of information and news that is reliable, that is trustworthy, and is not beholden to corporate shareholders and retainers.
Mr. Leonard?
I don't have too much to say about this one. I haven't had cable or watched TV since about 2011, so I'm not too sure what's on TV anymore. As far as money-wise, I didn't understand in the news when they're laying off people just for the C-level executives to give themselves more money. It was a little bit wrong. There's a place for the CBC. It's okay if it's government funded to a degree, as long as it remains unbiased. Some of the coverage lately ignores other parties that don't have a chance to have their voice set, just in this recent election. Keeping it unbiased, and it's also a free market. They can operate as a business, and they can be as successful as they want or can be. Thank you.
Mr. Heidenreich?
I too love the CBC, but we need a public broadcaster. It is essential to have as unbiased as you can be. Everyone's got a bit of bias, but as unbiased as you can be type of broadcaster giving us news and information. If it privatizes, like so many other industries, it is going to be to the detriment of the Canadian people. They're going to push certain narratives. You're going to end up with a Murdoch type empire of nonsense that's just feeding you garbage. There are issues around the finances, around C-suites getting too much money. Touched on this before. These people that are getting tons of bonuses for not doing anything and not paying the taxes. Well, that needs to come down a bit and make it a bit more realistic for what they're doing. If they're privatized, it's going to get even worse. We also need to address there are some legitimate criticisms. You talk about biases. If there are things that are coming up, making sure that they're addressed and making sure that it works properly and remains as impartial as possible. Like NPR, like the BBC World Service. There are good public broadcasters out there. And a free press is essential to a healthy democracy. We have to keep it going.
Before we ask the candidates to do a final wrap-up, we have one more question, and Mr. Buttle, you will begin. Many in our community, especially younger workers entering the workforce, feel that they can never afford to be homeowners on the Lower Mainland. What do you or your party plan to do for affordable housing?
We did another debate about 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, something like that, and I had a very quick, glib answer, Rhino Party style, saying that I lived in the north. I lived in the far north for a couple of years, and you can put up an igloo in an afternoon, so that should probably solve our problems. Now, I realize that that's not very realistic, and what with we have hot summers here and climate change and everything, but we've got a huge supply of ice right next door in Greenland. And I think if we just paid shipping and handling, we could have a non-stop supply of ice and snow. So I think that would solve the problem. Unfortunately, I am amongst that group that will never be able to afford a home. I'm pushing 60, and I have been a renter my whole life. Not that I regret it, not that I resent it, but paying child support made it so that I would never own a home. I think that's true for a lot of people. Okay, you make one or two wrong decisions in life, it could prevent you from owning a home. I don't have a solution for the young people today owning a home, unless they want to make it. No, the only other thing that I can think that might happen is property owners might get so desperate that they will use a backhoe, dig out a big hole in their front yard, and say, you bring your own tarp, we'll rent this out to you for $1,400 a month. There's no bathroom service on the property, and if you want to park here, you'll pay extra.
Ms. Rowell?
Under a Liberal government, we will be back in the business of building homes for Canadians. We will build up to 500,000 units per year, and this is going to be done with Canadian tradespeople, Canadian lumber, Canadian resources. We will provide funding to help with the down payments and with the overall financing. Again, the biggest project since World War II for housing. Our people, our residents, our children need help, and we're going to provide it.
Mr. Leonard?
I don't have an immediate answer on this one either for young people. It's going to be an uphill battle. I'm going to circle back to my previous point of vacancy. When too many people move into town too quickly, where are they going to go? Where are they going to live? If they have kids, where are they going to go to school? Are there enough grocery stores to feed everyone? Can the grocery stores keep their shelves stocked up? It's kind of a snake eating its tail with several issues. So I think if we can calm down immigration, it'd be a first step. It's not the solution yet. And another thing I would advocate for is keeping what's already in place for Maple Ridge. There have been cities and municipalities that have been pressured by people at the federal level to build up to accommodate more people coming in. I looked it up just a few days ago, and yes, there is a bylaw in Maple Ridge where you can literally limit the height of a building. I think we should keep that because I know when I look outside, I can actually see the skyline. I can see where the trees meet the sky. In Lower Mainland, that's getting reduced. So that's something I would advocate and help the municipality and Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows keep it that way. That's one thing we got going for us, and we should cherish that.
Mr. Heinrich?
Housing should absolutely be a fundamental right. We should do all we can to get people into homes and work on the homeless situation. I will agree with the Liberal Party that we need to get back into the business of building homes. How we do that and some of that funding, I'm going to disagree with. We need to make sure that we're doing it and making it affordable, not for profit. We need to make sure that we're in the business of building houses, not bringing in private companies that are going to jack up prices and perpetuate the problem that we already have. That is part of the issue. When it comes to grants to get people in the door, first-time homeowners, look at the nuances of the plan. We need to be doing it for actual first-time homeowners, not for corporations and companies that can buy up all the houses and then plug it back to us for a grant price. So we're talking the same thing, but behind the scenes, the implementation part of it is very different. So again, this is for the people, not for the corporations. Second to that, housing on the rental side, we need to make sure we stop price gouging. We need to make sure we stop rent evictions. That is driving people out so that young families aren't able to live in the communities where they grew up anymore. Touches on some of this. We have to build, we have to build smart, and we have to make sure that we don't price people out. So we can do that sustainably. We have the resources in Canada. We got lumber for lumber. We got lumber for days. We can do that without relying on America. We can do that internally. We don't have to worry about their foreign transportation, their logistics, any of their tariff nonsense. We can do that internally, and we can do it sustainably. We can work with the indigenous populations. We can make sure that whatever we do incorporates them so that they're reaping the benefits of what we're doing throughout the country, and just make it sustainable. It's not that difficult. This doesn't have to be politicized. There's money, there's lumber, there's resources, there's land. We can make it happen.
Yes, so it's 10 years. So I think you need to judge the current government by what has actually happened. And they can make all the promises they want on housing. Oh, 500,000, why don't they say million? It's just not happening. And things have gotten extremely difficult. The report, as I mentioned earlier, by the government, said in 2040 that owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. Most new homeowners need to get help from family members, take out intergenerational loans. They see inheritance as the only way to get ahead. Well, that shouldn't be. I didn't. Probably most of you. You're able to earn your house, to get a house, to move ahead, and young people deserve that. People deserve that. We need a strong economy. If you want a stagnant economy, because that's what we have right now is a stagnant economy, then you vote for Liberals. I'm telling you right now. You keep them going right there. It's the same old, same old. If you want the same old, then keep them in. Okay? If you want to change, you want to get some hope, then you need to vote for change, and that's a conservative government. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to take off for houses up to $1.3 million. We're going to take off the GST for new home buyers and for existing buyers. Now, there's also we're going to give incentives for cities to reduce all their charges, and conservative government will pay up to $50,000, or basically half the money lost for a municipal government, when they can reduce those costs, because it's bureaucracy, it's all these charges, it is so difficult to get the housing built. We want to get things going and process a lot faster, because I talk to builders, they're saying this community is one of the most difficult places to get things built. It shouldn't be that way, but it's not just here, it's everywhere in BC, it's everywhere in Canada. That needs to change, and a conservative government will push for less bureaucracy, less red tape, and to get the houses built. Thank you.
Our final set, I will ask each candidate to give a 2-minute summary, a rebuttal to anything that they have heard they may disagree with. I can't think of anything offhand, and 2 minutes. I'm cognizant of the time, and we'll have them each have a 2-minute wrap up, and then we'll have a meet and greet and conclude the evening. So, Ms. Rowell, would you begin with the course, please?
Thank you. And again, thank you to the MRTA for organizing tonight. And more importantly, thank you for the work that you do every day, day in, day out. Education is a great equalizer in our society, and we must protect it. I'm just thinking a couple points that Mark made was, he was saying by 2040 that education wouldn't be valued or needed to proceed, if I'm saying that correctly, something to that effect. The government report, right? And that we won't be able to have houses by 2040 or buy them, but I don't see it that way. With a Liberal government, we will have those things. Canada is at a crossroads right now, and the US has shown us what we don't want to be. And as likable as Jagmeet Singh is, and as much as we respect him as a person, myself included, sadly, he will not be Prime Minister. And for that reason, I'm asking the NDP to trust me with their vote so we can flip this riding. I see this as a one-question election, and you have to decide who do you feel is more qualified to run this country at this time. Is it Mark Carney or is it Poilievre? Again, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and on April 28th, I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Leonard?
In closing, thanks everyone for coming out. You could have been anywhere, but you're here tonight with us. As far as leaving you with a final thought, it's a question that came to mind. It's actually not my question, it's a Dr. Phil question. So for the past 50, 55 years, Canada's been doing this red and blue dance, going back and forth. Has it worked? Has it not worked? I'm sure everyone can nitpick and find pros and cons to all of it. But it's kind of been a steady decline, in my opinion. We've never been poor. The military's never been weaker. The economy's never been weaker. So when it comes to voting, the question that Dr. Phillip would ask is, so, how's that working for you? And consider do your own research before voting on the 28th, and vote with your heart. Thank you.
Mr. Heidenreich?
I will agree with Angie. Jagmeet's not going to be Prime Minister. But if you don't have NDP representation, the party that is actually the party of the people, that looks at the social issues, that looks at for making sure that we have what we need, what you're going to get is a lot of talk. You're not going to get delivery. The history's there. You can go look it up. It's all talk, no delivery, unless NDP holds their feet to the fire and gets you what you need. There's a long list: healthcare, dental care, anti-scab legislation, pharmacare. The stuff is coming in, it's early phases, and it's going to be rolled out more if we are there at the table making sure it happens. 2 points that we didn't address that were part of the questions that I want to quickly get onto in my time that I have is we need to do more about what we are doing in Palestine. We are still, despite talk of not harming Israel, there are loopholes and workarounds where we're funneling ammunition, funneling all sorts of things that we said we weren't doing through America and other parties, and it's still going to Israel, and it's still bombing kids every single day. We are part of that. You can't deny it. The other thing is making sure that we enshrine rights for some of our most vulnerable. If you see what's happening in America and you see what's happening in the UK this week, we need to make sure that we treat our weakest members as best as we can. So making sure that we protect LGBTQ rights, women's rights. This is non-negotiable. No one's humanity should be legislated away. Women's rights, safe access to abortion. Right? Voting records are public. Look at how the parties vote.
Mr. Dalton?
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of basically lies. Solzhenitsyn, a fellow that famous writer, said about the communists. They said they lie. We know they're lying. They know that we know they lie, but still they lie. And what I'm talking about, they say, well, the conservatives are going to defund healthcare. False. Lie. The conservatives are going to take away CPP. False. Lie. The conservatives are going to take away the right for the woman to have an abortion. False. Lie. We had a conservative government for 10 years, so I think we need to just address some absolute lies. And this is something here that I wrote to, this maybe in a box, but everyone I talk with, or virtually everyone I talk with, regardless of how they vote, agree that life has become more difficult. Rising costs, worsening crime, the drug and overdose crisis, and the stagnant economy is obvious. Young families struggle to afford homes, or even rent for that matter. And 1.3 million British Columbians lack a family doctor. I was on global TV not that long ago with a Dr. Bill Jacobs, a surgeon, not unable to practice. There are 20,000 doctors, 35,000 nurses that are unable to practice. That's a shame. I hear from people all the time who tell me they can hardly believe how much things have deteriorated. Some people tell me they would never have moved to Canada if they had known how challenging life would be, and that has become under the Liberals, including skilled professionals like doctors and nurses facing bureaucratic nightmares blocking them from practice. I guarantee this, that a Conservative government will turn this country around for the better in every way for everyone. Under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, Conservatives will put Canada first.
Mr. Butler.
Has everyone just about had enough of their fill of pure weapons-grade polonium? These discussions, these debates have a tendency to be a 2-hour sleeping pill, and I hope that that wasn't the case for you tonight. I hope you had an opportunity to get some insight into the candidates and their parties and their stances. I have maintained my entire life that I would never want to lower myself to the level of politician. So you can vote for the Rhinoceros Party if you want to. No one's holding a gun to your head or anything like that. I personally think that in the last several elections that I've witnessed here in Maple Ridge, the people who didn't vote was about, between 40 and 45%. That's who should win. Okay, we should have no representation here. That should be a no confidence vote. Okay, I'm letting my anarchist side show through here a little bit. Okay, do we really need leaders? Okay, do we really need this? You can do what you like with your vote. You only get one every few years. Okay, you put your little mark on the magic democracy cardboard. That's your only say. So be really careful. And when somebody tells you to do your own research, remember that research means that you cite all the sources that gave you the information. Not only that, but you get your material peer reviewed, okay? So be careful with that. You want to do homework, knock yourself out. You want to do research, you're in for some really hard, back-breaking labor, okay? Thank you so much, Maple Ridge.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, audience, for being very respectful. And special thanks to my timekeeper, Helmi, who may in fact not have the opportunity again to ring a bell and that tells a politician to stop talking.
Okay, and a big shout out to Clive. So that concludes the evening. We didn't anticipate anywhere near these people, so there are a few snacks. But thank you all for coming. And for the able, if you could assist by taking some of the chairs and stacking them on the back wall, it would hasten our exit from the building. But thank you all.